Greetings and salutations, this is Brian from Mechbladestudios. I don't cover enough stuff with giant robots, and as of late, I haven't reviewed a proper anime either. With that in mind, I decided to cover what used to be one of the most popular mecha anime, Aldnoah.Zero. Aldnoah.Zero was an anime about a sort of civil war between the humans of Earth and the humans that colonized Mars. It was released across 2 seasons from 2014 to 2015, created by Mechbladestudios regular Geno Robuchi, which you'd think would be an indication of a bloodbath. In actuality, he's not heavily involved at all. He wrote the general outline and first 3 episodes of the first season and nothing more, allowing director Aoki and writer Katsuhiko Takayama to really steer the series. Was this for the best? The notion that the show used to be popular should spoil things a bit in that regard. Starting with visuals as usual, the character designs, while not individually memorable, are distinct. The faces completely defy same face syndrome with very intricate eyes. Many different expressions can be made as well, at least on characters that can have different expressions. The mech designs have a unique dynamic. You know how in Gundam the good guys usually have the crazy weapons designed like, well, what you'd expect Japanese giant robots to look like, while the bad guys have very basic Zakus? Aldnoah.Zero does the reverse. The Martians have very alien-looking mechs with outlandish, physics-breaking weapons and abilities, and the Terrans only manage to scrape together these clunky utilitarian Sleipnirs that resemble a slight upgrade of the American mech in that real mech fight from a couple years ago. The Terran protagonist, Inaho, takes this a step further by choosing to use a bright orange trading model with lighter armor, technically making it even crappier. Animation-wise, there's a reason why I used this show as an example back in my Darling in the Franxx review for dodgy CGI in anime. Sometimes they blend in extremely well, and other times it looks like they're thrown in without any shading or regard for frame rate. The music comes from Attack on Titan and Kill la Kill composer Hiroyuki Sawano. Do I have to say anything? Here's a snippet of Allies, the second ED. This one manages to find a way into a lot of the score, and it never gets old. 2 other artists feature in the show. Calafina's Heavenly Blue is the first OP, and Aoi's Genesis is the third ED. My favorite song overall? An insert song called Breathless. Right now. If it weren't for copyright laws, this would be my outro music. The plot is an oddity in that it takes longer to explain the backstory and setting rather than the events we actually see. Rather than the distant future, the show depicts an alternate history. During the final manned mission to the moon, Apollo 17, one astronaut discovered a portal left by an ancient alien civilization that warped him to Mars and bestowed an ancient power called Aldnoah upon him. Aldnoah itself is not expanded upon that much, it appears to simply be a limitless power source. This man became the Emperor of Mars, Re Regalia Vers Ravers, and only shared his power with his descendants and those that swore fealty to him, the Orbital Knights. Because Mars is a desolate planet that they colonized for some reason and Earth has resources, Mars, called Vers by the Martians, went to war with Earth in the late 90s, culminating in that moon portal blowing up half the moon upon malfunctioning, causing untold destruction by the falling moon bits in an event referred to as Heaven's Fall. Until 2014, Earth and Mars managed an uneasy truce. Having been completely outgunned by the Martian mechs, the Terrans designed these comparatively primitive mechs in case a new war began. You got all that? Because this is where the show actually starts. Spoilers ahead. In 2014, we meet 2 of our protagonists, Servant Slain Troyard and Martian Princess Asylum Vers Lucia. Asylum is headed for Earth for a goodwill tour, intending to mend the tensions between Earth and Mars. Unbeknownst to them, the Orbital Knights have hatched a false flag assassination plot against her to instigate a war with Earth for its resources. Present at the parade is our third protagonist, Inao Kaizuka, a standard light novel protagonist whose gimmick is that he's cold, emotionless, and calculating. Shit hits the fan and Asylum is assumed dead, and the Orbital Knights begin their invasion. Asylum actually avoided the parade altogether via body double, she got sick, but she and her servant Edo Rituo are now stuck on Earth. She joins up with Inaho, his friends, and Earth's military to try to get the Martians to stop fighting. The season itself chronicles that journey through a number of Monster of the Week situations that Inaho is able to overcome through calculation and strategy, which, at least in my humble opinion, is neat to watch. The solid action helps a lot, and the reverse mech dynamics mean that every battle is an underdog fight for the Terrans. Throughout all this, Slain, actually born on Earth, transports Martian mechs to Earth on his jet while questioning whether what the Martians are doing is right. usually getting beaten and tortured for doing so. He primarily just wants to see his childhood friend and crush Salem again. He ends up serving a few different masters before serving Top Orbital Knight and Big Bad Count Sazbom, the mastermind behind the assassination attempt. This is already a lot to digest, but in the middle of that we get subplots of other side characters that, while they vary in quality, just tend to slow down the pace of the show. Examples include Raye, the vengeful orphan daughter of the assassin, and the PTSD-ridden alcoholic Lieutenant Marito. Other side characters exist just to fill out the trope quota and the ranks of each side's military, and thus barely count as characters. As a result, the show spreads itself thin in a lot of the time with interesting ideas, but forgets that it only has 12 episodes to work with and should be spending time developing its leads and main story. Romance plays an important part in the plot, being the motivation to keep living for Slane, and supposedly a motivation to fight for Inaho. Of course, this means a love triangle with Salem, but it's baked enough into the plot that it makes sense, rather than being tacked on like RWBY Volume 2. This manages to break a would-be alliance between Inaho and Slane, and then cause a sudden ending of the season. Dude, he was trying to help her, why would you do that? If Season 1 went in heavy on lore and action and forgot to write characters, Season 2 made a complete 180 and turned it into a total character drama. In that regard, the season focuses more heavily on the Martians and Slane, while the Terrans are kept around to keep the plot going. Instead of focusing on the war, although the usual Mecha of the Week battles do appear, we focus on Slane's rise to power. Having become Sazbom's knight, he now has Aldnoah activation privileges and can pilot Tharsis, a mech that can see the future to predict incoming fire. He keeps watch over Salem's comatose body while keeping her shape-shifting stand-in, Princess Lamrina, happy, and not doing a very good job at it. Back on Earth, Inaho recovers from his injuries, having his eye replaced with an analytical engine that boosts his already borderline overpowered strategic mind. Things basically proceed along this line until a climactic battle at the Martian moon base, before a now-awake Salem ascends the throne, marries this one random knight that's the son of another knight, and forces a ceasefire. A final battle ensues between Slane and Inaho anyway, because the writer didn't want the ending to be a complete edge-of-the-coin anticlimax. I have a feeling that the scope and sequence of events of the series was misguided from the start. The extensive backstory would have been interesting enough for its own series, but it only serves as lore and several egregious violations of show don't tell. Season 1 could have been the events leading to Heaven's Fall, including the first war itself, while Season 2 could have been a condensed version of the seasons that we do see. The only real characters are Inaho, Slane, and Salem, plus Sazbom and Lamrina to a lesser extent. This, of course, is ironic considering that our Terran lead, Inaho, is an emotionless problem solver. Yes, he begins to fall for Salem as they spend time together in Season 1, but he's already so stiff that even his sister Yuki makes fun of him for it. He even makes a subplot about his eye less effective because he's already a robot and the eye just makes it more literal rather than such a thing happening gradually, losing his humanity over time. Subjectively though, I kinda like him. I like how he calmly assesses the situation and comes up with plans through practical tests and measurements. He's not a good character, but I dig him, what can I tell you? What I don't dig and what I completely lost it over is when he ceded too much of his brain to his eye computer, causing him to pass out after one too many calculations, and the friggin' thing starts talking through Inaho's body. What? Why? How? Slane has much more meat to his character. His father, Dr. Troyard, brought Count Sazbom back to health after Heaven's Fall, making the latter keep an eye on Slane. The same cannot be said of Slane's immediate superiors that regularly belittle and torture him for his origins. The only solace he had came from talking with Salem, the person who woke him up from this ambiguous situation when he was younger. He cares for her a great deal and shares her view that Earth and Mars should coexist peacefully. Said love, however, led to the dissolution of a possible alliance with Inaho that could have gotten Salem to safety sooner and caused him to supposedly murder Inaho out of jealousy, beginning a spiral into villainy. His arc is the classic gifted, loose cannon hero loses sight of whatever made him heroic in the first place, with him eventually ascending to counthood, with the majority of the orbital knights following him and becoming just as ruthless as Sazbom, his crush's murderer, was. Speaking of Salem, as soon as she wakes up, he has her and Lamrina incarcerated for questioning his plan to colonize Earth, making peace through force. His fate of being stripped of all his power and being sentenced to life in prison on Earth is seemingly cruel, but look what he did and became. He brought this upon himself. Salem seemed to be set up to be a third protagonist, and for the first 3 episodes, which are the ones Butcher actually wrote, mind you, she was. The Goodwill Tour was her idea. After seeing the assassination attempt, she used her camouflage ability to keep herself from being targeted. She even helped a bit in taking down the first enemy mech. After that, though, she just becomes the MacGuffin. She activates the Deucalion's Aldnoah drive, witnesses the Martians' war crimes, and that's about it until the end of the series. She's strange because her motivations and ideals don't change, the intensity of them do. She wants peace at the beginning, and really wants peace at the end. I admittedly don't follow the logic of marrying Clan Kane at the end, but it seemed to work even if it pissed off a lot of fans and shippers. Everyone else, other than the vengeful but hypocritical Sazbomb and the lonely and sickly Lamrina, is there with little to no significance on the plot. Even Marito and Raye, who have interesting stories on their own, only get minute story bits that don't really add to the show as a whole and seem out of place as a result. Overall, I give Aldnoah.Zero a 6 out of 10. I was originally going to split the score like I did with Akiba Ranger, but I ultimately felt like both seasons ranked the same, just doing different things better or worse each time. While Season 1 has decent action but thin characters, Season 2 has filler problems but better fleshed out characters. The human characters in the mechs have neat designs, but the rendering of the mechs is inconsistent and sloppy. The plot and beats of the story are rather solid, but they're told in a meandering, boring way. The only consistent part of the whole series is the badass soundtrack. I don't know if all this means Aldnoah.Zero deserves to be forgotten, but it certainly doesn't have much to make people remember it. I happen to find it mildly entertaining, so I would give it a watch if you have some time to kill. So that's it for me for now. What do you guys think? Have you seen Aldnoah.Zero? Were you on Team Inaho or Team Slain? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, leave a like and subscribe for more reviews of anime, video games, and movies. Also hit that bell icon so you know exactly when a new video goes up, and share this video with someone that might find it helpful. Thanks for watching. This is Brian from Mechbladestudios, signing off.